Good afternoon, entities. It is Sunday, April the 19th, 2026, and this is message number 22. Well, a ton has happened, but not a lot of activity and meetings. We've only had one board meeting, and we've had a couple of other issues that have been brought up that I need to bring to your attention. So today we're going to talk briefly, and I mean briefly, about five things. I'm going to give you a recap of the 4-hour TAD board meeting on February the 18th, mainly focusing on the reappraisal plan that was represented by Wendy and Eric. And Azle ISD, as well as City of Arlington, were there. Number two, we're going to talk about the controversial video that Chandler Crouch put out about the 190,000 taxpayers that are getting screwed by the reappraisal plan. I'll give you a brief update on the CAMA conversion, and I want to tell you a little bit about the future elections in 26, 27, and 28, because there may be a call to action to maybe change some of this stuff.
On the property value study results, we had two schools that are invalid, but in their grace periods. We have Azle ISD and Carroll ISD.
Fast moving, either up or down, that we would have had more invalid findings.
If the market was moving up, yes,
If it was moving down,
then it would have stabilized more.
okay. So with TAD not reappraising residential values in 2026, and they already have one invalid finding, if we stay under the current reappraisal plan and we don't reappraise these schools, do you anticipate that they will have an invalid finding on that 2026 study?
The market doesn't seem to be moving that fast right now, so I would expect a similar result next year or this year.
Okay. If one of them fall below the 85.5% on this study, do you see a scenario where that could happen?
With Carroll, that would be much more likely. I don't know about Azle if they would fall below 85.
So when a school district gets grace period in year one of the property value study, they actually automatically get grace in year two. So Azle and Carroll will both be in a grace period for 2026, regardless, even if they were to fall below that 85.5%. The problem for those districts is if they get an invalid finding for 2026 after having an invalid finding for 2027 now, or 2025, now they're going to have to get in 2027 and again in 2028 to get back to their full grace year periods that are there. But for 2026, both Azle and Carroll will be in a grace period almost regardless of what happens to the values.
First to speak, everybody has 3 minutes here. First to speak is Todd Smith. Morning.
Good morning, and kind of perfect timing with kind of the conversation that you guys just had. And so I'm going to read from this only because this is a little bit out of my comfort zone, and I want to make sure that I don't, have exactly what we have there. So kind of bear with me as we kind of go through this, but it just kind of reiterates what was discussed. So obviously, and I don't know if y'all have to have it for the record, but my name is Todd Smith, Superintendent of Schools, Azle ISD. This is not necessarily the first time for us to publicly speak at a board meeting regarding the TAD reappraisal plan. At the time of the consideration, Matt Adams, who was our assistant superintendent and CFO, spoke to, and I know many of you weren't part of the board at that time, but he's now retired, and we addressed the board with concerns of failed property value studies, not just for Azle ISD, but for those 7 or 8 districts that Joe Don mentioned earlier in his report.
Ethan Close.
Thank you, Board. I'm Ethan Close, the Treasurer for the City of Arlington. As I've stated here in front of you before, as I've stated down at the state legislature, the City of Arlington would like for you to amend the reappraisal plan. We believe that your job is to appraise properties. You should be appraising all properties every single year.
Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I don't believe it's premature. We've had a invalid finding, and from the comptroller's point of view, that is a failure. And I guess, everyone knows what I do for a career. I'm a firefighter, right? So why take the chance of a calamity happening in 2027 or a mistake and we fail, the school district would not qualify for grace because they will have used up their second year of grace. So I feel that we have the opportunity to fix the plan that worked for 97% of the county. So I think we should take that opportunity. Thank you.
Mr.
My question that relates to it is if the decision's not made today, get your little notepad out again and say it's done 1 year from now. They're okay for a year, but 1 year from, you don't need your notepad. Let me clarify. If we wait a year, they're good for the year, but what they are potentially risked at is for the year, God's sakes, 5 years from now.
I think it's either 28 or 29 when the next reappraisal would be done. That's the part I'm not 100% sure of, is if we pass it in 27, whether we get a study in 28 or whether our next study doesn't come out until 29. But in either event, assuming if we don't reappraise for 26 and we fall out of the confidence interval for 26 again, we are going to have to pass the next two property value studies, whether that's 27 and 29 or 27 and 28. And again, to Ms. Farrar's point, and that's assuming the legislature doesn't completely upend the apple cart and put in a whole new system by the time we get there.
I don't think there's any question that's going to happen. That's the reality.
I'm pretty sure it's 27, 29. In Waco, we missed one of the schools and they didn't study it after we corrected it.
Well, and I think that's what I heard the superintendent say too, so that is probably correct then. And that's how then you get to the 2031, although it really wouldn't be, because if we failed in 29, then we would actually get a study in 30, so it would be 2030, not 2031. But
That the way you intended to vote is when in the system?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. 4 or 5 failed.
Then we're going to go straight into number 2. I cut Chandler's video down. I want you to watch all 23 minutes of it if you haven't seen it, because he has now figured out how it's affected the taxpayers. Lots of controversy about his video. Those that are against this video are saying, oh, maybe it isn't 190,000, maybe it's 130,000, maybe it's 100,000. But if it's even 10,000 taxpayers who are overpaying on this, it's reason number 3 why we need to get rid of the reappraisal plan.
This is not the video I wanted to make. Governor Abbott is going around Texas telling homeowners he's doing them a huge favor on property taxes, and he's wrong. And we already know why, because Tarrant County just ran the same exact experiment and 190,000 homeowners got screwed by it. Not a single one knows it happened until now. I filed an open records request with the Tarrant Appraisal District, and this is what came back. It shows that TAD had already calculated new lower values for over 190,000 homes. And those numbers were just sitting in their computer system, but the board in a public meeting voted to freeze values at a higher level anyway. They were never going to tell you, and I'm going to prove it. They got in there and almost immediately voted to freeze the values. And at first glance, it sounds like a tax break. It sounds like relief. But freezing values only helps you if your home value would have gone up. If your home value would have gone down, freezing at a higher level hurt you. So at that time, the problem is the housing market had already started to shift, and some areas were already dropping in value, and TAD's own system showed evidence of this. And I warned them before they made the vote.
I would be absolutely shocked if we saw more than 6% appreciation. And as we talked about in the last meeting, there was like 30% of values actually went down.
I wasn't the only one. There were over 27 elected officials from different cities and school districts that showed up to those board meetings and begged the board not to do it. Mansfield ISD said they could potentially lose $15 million in state funding. Northwest ISD said they'd be forced to raise tax rates in 2 different counties. Castleberry said they could lose $3 million in state funding that would force them to close campuses, and Fort Worth ISD reiterated that the district stability depends on accurate values.
Right. So we can pivot at any time because to me, my role here is to represent the best interests of the taxpayers. And if this plan is we need to pivot and adjust, I'm open to that. The idea is to make sure that it's accurate. Let's do it right.
Yes, sir.
So what did the board do? Well, they listened, they took it all in, they made a bunch of promises that they would make adjustments so people wouldn't get hurt, and then they froze values, and now 190,000 people are getting screwed. I could go on and on and on, as so many homeowners are getting ripped off by paying taxes on overvalued properties. There are other properties out there getting enormous discounts, not because they earned it, not because their house is worth any less, but that's the decision that the appraisal district made. They picked the winners and they picked the losers. And when you see exactly who was chosen to win and lose, it's not gonna make you happy. Let's look at the numbers. There were 64.7% of homeowners benefited from the freeze. 31.7%, which is 195,280 homes, were hurt by the freeze. 3.5%, which is a little over 21,000, had no impact whatsoever. This graph shows that the more expensive your house was, the bigger discount you got on your property tax value. The lower your tax value, the higher the percentage you're paying. Now, I gotta share the saddest part about this video. There's a reason I'm calling it a scam, but it didn't start that way. The people that chose to do this, I believe, had good intentions to help, not hurt. And you might be thinking, well, it helped 60% of the people out there. And I would agree. It's a good thing. I want to help those people. I wouldn't wish that away. If had the lower number, they chose not to use it, and they were not even going to tell you. Tarrant County is the guinea pig. They're running the experiment here to see if it works. Then they're going to take it to the state level. So to stop it at the state level, we have to stop it in Tarrant County first. Press pause on this video right now so you can copy these email addresses and send an email to the board of directors in Tarrant County demanding that they lower the value on the properties that are getting ripped off. Sending an email, even if you don't know what to say, lets them know that we're watching and they can't get away with what they're doing. They already hurt over 190,000 homeowners here in Tarrant County. This next year, it's going to be, I would assume, at least 190,000 more. And if it goes statewide, we're not talking about thousands, we're talking about millions.
Number one, it hurts our cities and our ISDs. Number two, as Chandler's found out, it hurts our taxpayers. And number three, it creates what I'm going to refer to as taxpayer surprise by not reappraising every year. And people ask me this question all the time. If this was such a good idea, we would have taken income tax, what you pay the IRS, we put you on a 5-year plan. But you and I both know that your jobs would change, your income may go up, go down, so you need to file your taxes every year. Same with property. Values change too much. Things that are involved in all this work's changed too much that we really need to go back to annual appraisals. The experiment that this TAD board has done since 2024 has got too many things that go wrong with it. So now you've heard about the TAD board, now you heard about Chandler. Let me tell you briefly, the CAMA conversion software is now in its mid phases. We've now fully on the software. You probably got your postcard. I'd like to tell you more about how that works on the new software because there's some really, really cool things that you can do now. You can protest your property online. It's really excellent. Let's talk about future elections. If what you heard and saw has got concerns to you, you've got 3 opportunities. The 3 publicly elected board members are up for re-election in November. And it's going to be, this issue about reappraising is going to be part of the controversy. I think there'll be some interesting players that will come into it, and you only need to flip 1 seat to change the dynamics of this board. Number 2, in 2027, which is my re-election, Ms. Farr will be part of that from the entities. And basically, from what I see of the math from the school districts, I don't think she has enough votes to be re-elected in 27. And in 2028, the 3 publicly elected folks are going to be in a drawing to determine who's going to get the 2-year and who's going to get the 4-year, because they're going to go to staggered elections. So unfortunately, one of those 3 is going to be up for re-election in 28, which means if you don't agree with what we're doing, you have 3 chances to switch the dynamics. Only takes 1 seat to change the dynamics of this board. Entities, I totally appreciate everything that you're doing. If you get an opportunity at the end of April, on April the 30th at 10 a.m., we'd love to see you at the entity meetings. Until then, I appreciate, continue to do the great work that you do for Tarrant County.